Hi everyone, today's video is a reshoot of how to wrap your soap using printer paper, and we're going to be designing in Microsoft Word just like in the last video. I plan to shoot a couple more videos showing you how to design in GIMP, Illustrator, possibly Canva, but for today we are just reshooting the Microsoft Word tutorial because that is a more accessible program for people. Alright, so we're using some bars that I'm going to have to rebatch because I didn't mix them very well. But we're going to pretend that it's 3 different fragrances just for the purpose of demonstration. My nails are dirty. So to get started, we need 2 sheets of paper. This is going to be my paper that I'm going to print on with the labels. And just so you guys can make sure that it's no trickery going on, I am going to write for YouTube on the back of the paper before I put it in the printer when I get ready to print on that. Alright, so to get started we need to cut this paper in half. So I created a custom mold for a custom size bar, kind of tall and skinny. If your bars are much bigger than this, you won't be able to get 2 per page. But I made my bars a specific size so that I could get 2 wrappers per page. So you get 1 here, 1 there. So the easiest way, just fold this over on the short edge of the paper. You want the fold to be on the short edge of the paper, not the long edge, because we are cutting it in half. We're going to cut it in half. You want to get your lines pretty even. And press it out. Alright, so then we open that back up. I'm having issues opening a piece of paper. And then, as much as we can, cut along that line. If you have a guillotine cutter, by all means use that. I am operating under the assumption that you do not have a guillotine cutter. So we're just going to follow that line. I hate the sound of scissors on paper, by the way, so this part's probably going to be muted. Or something like that. Alright, so we have 2 roughly equal halves of paper that we are going to use then to wrap our bar. So let's get this extra piece out of the way. Let's get these extra bars out of the way and remove all of the distractions. We'll bring this guy back when we're actually done designing on the computer and ready to print. We're going to print on this side and then we'll cut and wrap. Alright, so to wrap the bar, can you see that? I don't know. So to wrap the bar, you want to place it where you want, because remember, we're going to be designing our soap label template from the measurements we take from this paper. What I recommend when you get ready to wrap, you can put it in the center of the paper, but that won't give you a whole lot of room for your back panel, because this is going to be your back panel. So I would recommend kind of putting it over here and, you know, just have enough room so that you can fold this up and it doesn't overlap. It doesn't go off the edge of the soap bar. So now, since we've moved it over, we have this whole area to use as our soap ingredients panel on the back of the soap bar. So what we're going to do is we're going to pinch and drag on these edges, and that is going to give us a guide of the dimensions of our soap bar. We also need to do this for the shorter side as well, the shorter dimensions. Pinch and drag, and again, these are hand cut bars, so it's a little bit narrower on one end than it is on the other. We will just have to kind of work with what we have. Alright, now we're going to take this bar of soap out. As long as they're all from the same batch and they all have the same or similar, really similar dimensions, this one template can be used for that entire batch when we get ready to do designs. So now when we get ready to measure, We're going to take our ruler here, my handy dandy Incredibles ruler that I've had forever. And we need to, before we start making measurements, we need to mark the lines where we see folds, because these are going to be our measurements when we get ready to start designing in Microsoft Word. All right. Everywhere that there's a fold, you want to make a mark, and we're going to measure those, take those measurements. So mark there. I marked the other side, but I had it upside down. And that's not going to help with when it's time to design. All right, so we have a mark there, mark there. All right, so we're going to take our measurements. Now, since we're designing in Microsoft Word, the designing is a little bit different than if you were to design in Illustrator, which I use by default, or Canva or GIMP, which mirrors Illustrator Photoshop. So when you're designing in Microsoft Word, because we are using tables, you're going to need to know the dimensions of each cell. So each separate panel is considered a cell. So you'll need those dimensions individually versus a cumulative measurement. So we're going to measure these individually and put the dimensions there. All right, so this first panel is 1.5 inches. So we're going to put 1.5. This next panel should be 1 inch because my bars are usually cut right at 1 inch. Yep, 1 inch. This next panel is about 3 3/4. So we have 3 3/4. Yeah, 3.75 inches. And this next panel should be another inch because that's the other side. And it is slightly smaller because my bars are hand cut and they're not even. So this dimension up here is 1 inch. This dimension over here is slightly less than 1 inch. But we're going to go with 1 inch because we need the minimum to cover the entire bar. So 1 inch there. And then this last panel is roughly, we're going to take from the smallest section, it's about 3.5 inches. So roughly 3.5 inches wide. So this is, ooh, that's a mess. This is roughly not quite 3/4 of an inch. Ooh, girl, I can't see. We're gonna say this is about 3/4 of an inch, so 0.75 inches. This panel here is 2 3/4. Yep, about 2 3/4, 2.75 inches. And this last panel should be about the same, about 3/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit smaller. So we're going to say 0.75 inches. When I bring you back, we are going to be at the computer and we're going to take this with us to the computer so we have these measurements when we get ready to put that into Word. And I will put these measurements up on the screen while we're designing. Okay, so let's jump right into our design. The first thing we need to do is go up to Layout, and we need to change the orientation to Landscape. And the next thing we need to do is create custom margins. We need to have as much of this area usable and workable as possible. We don't want to go too far close to the margins because anything too close, it just won't print, and then you're stuck with some of your label information cut off. So we go to margins, you will go to custom margins, and the smallest that I was able to get and still for the most part be able to print out my information was 0.17 inches all the way around. Now the safest when you are actually really designing is slightly less than that, I think, but we're going to go with 0.17 inches. We are still in landscape orientation and it applies to the whole document. You don't need to change anything else, just hit OK. All right, so that gives us a teeny tiny margin. So we have all this area to work in. And now we're going to go to the Insert tab. We need to insert the table that we're going to be using to create our template. So for the 2 per page labels in landscape orientation, we need a 5x7 table, 5 columns across, 7 rows down. Great. Okay, so now we're going to click one time in this top left cell, right click, go to table properties, and we need to go to the column tab. It may start you off right here at the table tab. Just click over here to column. We need to make sure this preferred width box is checked or selected, and so it is going to automatically make those changes for us as we cycle over through the columns. So the first column dimension was 1.5 inches, and then next column, it automatically makes that change for you. The second column is the width of your cut bar, the thickness of your cut bar. My bars are cut 1 inch thick, so I put 1 inch there. Next column. This third column is your principal display panel, or PDP, according to the FDA labeling guidelines. This will contain your company logo, name, the fragrance of the product, what the product is, the weight, all of that information. So in this example, it was 3 3/4 or 3.75 inches wide. We're going to go to the next column. This again is the cut thickness of your bar. So that's 1 inch for my bars. And then this final panel is your ingredients panel, where you have, of course, ingredients, the usage instructions, any cautionary statements, the manufactured by statement, all of that information goes on this back panel. And so in the measurements, it was about 3.5 inches, but we can't print all the way to the edge on any program that I'm ever aware of on a personal computer. So we need to take that down to about 3 1/4 or 3.25 instead of 3.5. So we're going to come back over here and we're going to select 3.25 or 3 1/4 inches. And we're going to hit next column to make me feel safe and good. And then we're going to hit OK. All right, so we have our table column width set up. Now we need to take the rows. So what I mean by the rows, these are going to be the rows. It's the height of these panels here. So this is one full label, but remember we get 2 labels per page. And so our measurements for the top and bottom adhesive panels where we fold and affix our adhesive are 3/4 of an inch. But I'm going to tell you right now, designing in Microsoft Word, because we have to deal with margins, we're not going to be able to get 3/4 of an inch for each panel. We just need it to be slightly wider than 1/2 an inch because our soap bars are 1 inch thick. So let's go back over here to our Microsoft Word document. Click one time in the top left cell, right click, reopen table properties. Now we're going to go to the row tab. We need to select this specify height box, and then the top box in the folded example was 3/4 of an inch. I think we can get away with maybe 0.55 inches, maybe 0.6, but I'm not sure. So we're going to start off with 0.55. If we have some extra room, we can go back and kind of wiggle with the numbers. All right, so row height, we need to put exactly, not at least. We need to uncheck allow row to break across pages because you do not want your row being split in half by a page. We're going to select next row, and just like with the columns, Word automatically makes that change for you. So this panel is the width of the soap bar, and in this example it was 2 3/4 of an inch wide or 2.75. Row height is exactly that, and we need to uncheck allow. Next row, it automatically makes that change for us. So this third row is our bottom panel on the top label, and that is where we fold and affix our adhesive. We need 0.55 inches. We're going to say exactly. Do not allow to break across pages. Uncheck allow. We're going to hit next row. This row is our cut guideline row. We really don't need much thickness here at all. So we can do either 0.05 or 5/100ths of an inch, or even a tenth of an inch, 0.1. I'll see if it'll let me do 5/100ths of an inch because I literally just need it there to make a cut. Uncheck allow, next row. Very good, that's all I need. So this row is the top folding panel of the second label on the page. So we're going to put 0.55 of an inch exactly. Uncheck allow, next row. And like I said, we're starting all over. So we're back in the middle panel, which is the width of your cut bar. This example, it was 2 3/4 of an inch, 2.75 exactly. Uncheck allow. Next row, specify the height. We're going to put 0.55 of an inch exactly. Uncheck allow and then hit next row. So now as you see, we have roughly about a quarter of an inch or so of space here where we may be able to kind of get some more wiggle room on our folding panels. So let's try to see if we can get 6/10 of an ounce, 6/10 of an inch. So 0.6 for these folding panels. 1, 2, 3, 4 folding panels. Next row, skip to the next folding panel. Let's try to bump it up to 6/10 of an inch to give us a little bit more wiggle room when it's time to fold our labels and wrap around our soap. Next row, that's the cut guideline. We don't need to change anything there. And we're going to try to bump this up to 6/10 of an inch. And our final folding panel, let's see if we can get it there without breaking into a new page. Very, very good. Okay, so that worked really well. We're going to hit OK to finalize those changes. And the only thing that we need to do now before we start getting into the meat of our design is to remove all these lines, because as it stands right now, if you design and you print, all of these boxes are going to print all over your soap label, and we really don't want that. So we're going to go in here and we're going to click, hold, and drag all the way down to the bottom right cell. We're going to either go right here, or if you're up here, you come to the borders and shading, and we're going to say none for the entire table. We're going to hit OK, and it removes it removes the lines. It used to leave an outline so you could see. So well, things have changed since my last tutorial. So what we're going to do right now is, if you have the latest version of Word, then you don't want to remove that right now because you need these to be able to see for your design. We will go back later and remove those. It doesn't make a difference if we remove them now or later. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to select this row to mark it. All right, so we're going to click there, and you can barely see it, but it is selected. It's grayed out there. And then we're going to right click, and I just want to fill that row with color. I'm going to do black. That's going to be my cut line to divide the page in half so we know where our soap panels are. Okay, now to get to the design, remember this panel here is just to fold and affix adhesive. We don't need anything there. This panel, you can put whatever information. You can put the name of the product, any other information. You can put your social media icons here. Any of that stuff can go there. So we're going to go ahead and start on our main panel, and you can come up here to view and then zoom in if you want to, or you can hold down Control on your mouse and scroll up and it'll zoom in. So what I found that helps when designing these is to have a document with the information already typed out and ready to go, so you don't have to type all that stuff out while you're designing. So the first thing we're going to go get is our logo. And I don't know how many of you saw the previous video or one of the previous videos, but we created this logo for free using Canva, completely free online software, tons of options there. So we're just gonna Control C to copy, Control V to paste. And you want to come over here to the wrapping box, the layout options, and I'm going to make it in front of text, and that way I can move it around wherever I need to move it around on the page. That's taking up a whole lot of space, and you can do that if you want your logo to be really huge. It's entirely up to you. If you want it centered, that is also entirely up to you. So we're going to center this logo for today's example. Our company name is Botanical Body, and it doesn't matter if it's a little bit over that line. We want to create a text box. We go to Insert, Text Box. We just need I like to draw a text box. We're going to draw it right here under our logo, and we're going to put it in front. Come over here to Home, center it, and we're going to type out Artisan Soap. And we need to drag this down just a bit. And then you can change the font here or up here. I like to do it up here because I can see my changes as I go, and then I can pick which one I want to go there. All right, so we're gonna go with that. And what else do we need to put on this front panel? We need to put the weight at the bottom, and we need to put the fragrance name. All right, so that text box is almost done. We're going to click to highlight the text box, right click, and outline, no outline. Now, this is a newer Windows than when I first recorded the first video like this. So we can come back here, right click if you don't have these options, right click, and then come down here to Format Shape. And then it will bring this box up over here. And then you just go Fill, no fill, which means it won't put a background behind this, like if you have colorful things going behind it. And then line, no line. That will remove that box. Now that we have one text box created, we can use it as to just copy and paste for our other text boxes. So we highlight the box, make sure it is selected, Control C to copy, or you can right click and then select copy. Got it. Thanks. And then we can come out here and then just double click and then hit paste. And then we can move this around. And I'm going to paste it twice because I need to do my product name and the weight. So we're going to go over to our document with the product name. We're going to start with this one. And we need to make sure we come up here and center it. Why is it doing that? I don't know. There we go. Okay, so that centers it, and then we can come up here and change the font. So this is where you can get creative. I don't recommend too many different fonts because it just makes it look unprofessional, but I would like something. kind of like that. Okay, we're going to do that one. And then we're going to bring it up to 18 point. Don't worry about that. All we need to do is just drag these, the bounding box out, and we'll be able to see our fragrance name. All right, and then we need to put our weight. Our weight needs to go in the bottom third of the PDP, or principal display panel, which is typically the front label. So we just come over here, we're going to copy, we're going to go back to our label design, select all of this, and Control V to paste, or you can right click and paste. Again, don't worry if it's cut off, we'll just drag this out, and there we go. And then we click in here, center it, and then drag this over to center. So you can have it set up that way. If you have some other graphics that you want to put on this front panel, you most definitely can do that. But for the sake of today's demonstration, we're just going to just keep it simple. All right, so that's our front panel. I know it looks awfully boring, doesn't have any graphics. You can put other graphics and swoops and swooshes and all that stuff. But just make sure you don't design right to the edges, because this is going to be where we're going to be folding the paper, and you don't want to have words and things being folded. It just doesn't look very professional. So now we come to over here, and instead of copying and pasting, I am actually going to draw out another text box, because we're going to put a lot of information here, which is our ingredients panel. So we're going to insert text box, draw a text box. We're going to go right here to maybe right there, and text wrapping in front of text. And we're going to come over here, find our ingredients. Just going to copy and paste. To be safe, let's bring this in just a little bit more, because again, we're going to be folding, and you don't want your words to be too close to the border, to the edge of the paper. And so I like for things to be centered. That's just a personal preference. If you like it to be left aligned, whatever you like, that's what you do. All right, so we're going to do that. So I don't need all that space there. But I do need to remove the border. So we're going to right click. If you have these options, then you can use these options. Shape fill, no fill, that means there's just no color behind here. You can't see it because it's a white color. So if I add a shape, let's say insert a shape, and we're going to drag up a colorful box, and let's send it behind everything. So this is what I mean by fill on text boxes. You can't see it because it's white on white, but now that there's a box back here, that's why we go up and take the fill out of it, so that if you have other design elements like a swoosh or a swirl or something, it's not being cut off by this box here. So then we come up here, and you can come up here, or you can go to format shape, and we go to the fill, no fill. It immediately removes that, so your other graphics can show through. Line, no line. That was for demonstration purposes. We're going to remove that blue box, but that's there. So now we can use this as our copy and paste for this last panel. So we just Control C to copy, or right click and hit copy. Deselect that box. What I do like about Word, you just double click where you want the next thing to be, and Control V, and we bring this over. And then we can come over to our other panel. What information needs to go on the back? I made this for, I actually like this. I might put this on my labels. I made this for a client for their particular product, their soap bars that I'm making for them, but I really like it. So I may keep it for my own too, or start putting it on my own. And it's just basic instructions, because not everyone is accustomed to using homemade soap, and so they don't understand why the bars dissolve so quickly. All right, so again, I like things to be centered, so I click in here, center it. I want to make another box. So we Control C to copy, Control V to paste, bring this up. And there was one other thing. All right. And then you edit that information the way you want. If you notice, when I hit enter the first time, there was a bigger gap. But if you want it to be right underneath, you hold down shift and then hit enter, and it takes away that extra space. I kind of like the website being a little bit separated from the other information, but just like everything else, I like it to be centered. So we select all of this, or just select the box and then center. There we go. So that's our back panel. Again, I'm keeping it extra super simple. Okay, so I had to go and locate my social media icons so that I could put those on these example wrappers that we're going to print out and use to wrap our soaps. So we're going to go over to our document here and get our social media icons. And so the idea that I have is to put the social media icons on this panel and the information on this other panel. So we'll see how that looks. So just like anything else, we're just copying and pasting, and we can resize these once we get them all over here. We're gonna select this one, Control C to copy, Control V to paste. Oops. And with Instagram, and we're going to paste it. All right, so I'm gonna make these pretty big just for sake of this example. Oh, don't need that. That's kind of way too big. And you want to make sure that you do in front of text, because that gives you the freedom to move them around, and they're not static. They're not anchored to a particular position on the page. They don't move with the text like they were just doing. So we want to just kind of center them, and that's good. I'm not going to worry about the rest. It's huge, but again, we're just doing this as an example. And then we're going to come over here, and then we're going to come over here. We're going to insert another text box, and we can just put botanical body, and then we're going to do text direction, rotate all text 270 degrees. We're going to center that, and we're just going to scale it up. And we need to remove there's no fill, and we need to remove the outline for that text box. Okay, really? That's our first label done. Those social media icons are huge, but that's okay. All right, so now we're going to click and hold and drag, and then we're just going to Control C to copy. Yeah. Click, hold, and drag. Control C to copy, and then we're going to come here, click one time in this middle panel in the far left, and then Control V to paste. And now we have two identical labels. So now we need to get rid of all of these lines where these boxes are. So we're going to click and hold and drag. You can either come down here to the border and shading, or up here, borders and shading, none, hit OK. That removes the borders. So now we just have our labels that we need to print. When I bring you back, we're going to be back with the camera showing you how to cut these and wrap them, and how you can customize them according to fragrance or whatever you want to do. All right, we'll be back. So I decided to do a few different ones. Gosh, those social media icons are huge, but whatever. I did a sample of a strawberry fragrance for YouTube. Hey YouTube. A honey fragrance, and a lilac and lavender. I love y'all. I really do.